Thank you so much, guys. So, okay.
You don't have to shout.
All right. I used to teach at 32 BJ. I had like 40, 50 people in the class, so I'm used to shouting. All right, so my name is Taurus McBride. I actually taught at Turner Trade School for 10 years, and then I taught at 32 BJ for about 4 years. And after that, because the fire department knew me very well, they allowed me to create an online, on-demand course for the New York City refrigeration license. So the first class that I ever taught was at 50 West Street, thanks to Seth Costin and Mike Gubbins. Then when Mike Gubbins went to Waterline Square, he took me over there. So between those two buildings, I probably trained about 50 guys who now run their own buildings right now. Willie Olsen, yep. So my passion is HVAC and building engineering for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's 111 million buildings in this country, so there's always going to be some type of work in a building. Number two, I look at buildings as kind of like colleges for trades. Because, like Olsen will tell you, he started as a porter. All those guys were porters, and they're all running their own buildings right now because you go in, you show up for work every single day, and they were very fortunate because they chose to invest, so have me come over there and train these guys. And there's an infinite amount of opportunity, in my estimation, for people who want to work hard and want to learn how to run buildings on their own. Throughout the years, I've always kind of seen little things happening inside of buildings that most people would never talk about, because it's kind of weird. If you are a service provider, because we also do HVAC installations and service and things like that, you can't go around crapping on your customers. You can't say, well, this is happening in this building over there. At the same time, if you run a building and you want people to, rent your space or buy condos, you can't say all these things are wrong in our buildings. So I found out all these issues. And I'm talking about commercial, industrial, residential. Every type of building has all of these issues that outside of organizations like this, nobody talks about. And I would see that there would be, like a couple of years ago, I heard about this curtain wall issue where the curtain wall would bang against the side of the space. And then I would see the same thing happen in multiple buildings because nobody would talk about it. The building wouldn't talk about it, the vendor wouldn't talk about it, and I see these problems repeating. So a couple of years ago, when I was teaching at 32 BJ, around 2014, I heard about this thing called Local Law 97. Local Law 97 was essentially an end around to get all the buildings to put in heat pumps. Because they didn't say you have to get rid of your gas and oil equipment. They said, oh, in case your greenhouse gas emissions exceed a certain amount, then you're going to start getting fines. So what happened is that law passed in 2019. And I told all my students, you probably need to do something to start installing some kind of heat pumps or something like that. And everybody said, well, no, somebody's going to sue and there's going to be lawsuits, and there were lawsuits, and this thing is going to go away. Well, guess what? It never went away. And right now, this year, I guarantee you, everybody over here that has a letter grade on your building, you have a schedule. And that schedule is talking about the fines that you're going to get starting at the end of this year, and they're going to go up 20% year over year. So by the time you're talking 2030, your fines could be hundreds of thousands of dollars for a small pre-war building. And at the same time, like I said, we're doing a lot of service and installation and maintenance on HVAC equipment. And I'm seeing these gigantic heat pumps. So the big heat pumps are called VRF. So it's like 10 tons, 20 tons, up and up and up. And I would have these buildings that would have this unit sitting up on this roof, and then they would have thousands of feet of refrigerant line going down into the building, connected to dozens of heads inside of the building. Well, guess what? If you got a refrigerant leak somewhere, how are you going to find that leak? I was talking with somebody, property management company, they just opened up an $88 million building, and they got refrigerant leaks all over the place, number one. Number two, what people don't understand, when you have those multi-zone systems, if one head goes down, it takes out all the heads. So this is a low-income building, right? One person did not pay their rent. All of the people's apartments that were connected to that hotel unit lost heating and cooling. And again, I'm seeing these issues that nobody's dealing with. So there's two main things I wanted to deal with. Number one, how do you help all these buildings deal with the local law 97 issue where you're starting to install heat pumps? because of the pre-war building, it is literally impossible to put a condenser on the outside of that building, especially if it's like a landmark building or something like that. Secondarily, unless you plan to displace everybody that lives in every apartment, and you're gonna have to put that unit up on a roof, and you're gonna have to drill down between every apartment, and then tear out the walls and the ceilings in order to put the heat pumps in. I'm like, this is insanity. And then the third thing is this. This year, there was a phase out of the predominant refrigerant used in most of these systems called R410A. So R410A is a HFC. So HFC is kind of bad for the atmosphere. So they said, okay, we're gonna replace this. It wasn't. Oh no, it was great. Oh listen, when I started, they phased out R12 in 1992. R12 was phased out in 1992. I can show you a building that has an R12 system right now. R11, same thing. What was it? Like Rockefeller Center, they got like 10,000 gallons of R11 or R134 and all this stuff, right? So they phased out R12, which was dominant refrigerant in 1992. They phased out R22 in 2020. It took almost 30 years for them to phase out that, and then they said, boom, within 5 years you got to get rid of 410A. So instead of that 30-year gap to adjust, it was 5 years. So last year, a lot of people don't know this, all the manufacturers stopped making R410A equipment. You cannot import R410A equipment to this country right now. And the new refrigerant is called A2L, stands for slightly flammable. So it's slightly flammable refrigerant. All new equipment is A2L. Well, guess what? Remember I was talking about that unit up on the roof, you gotta drill and run all those lines? Well now, because you got a flammable refrigerant going through all these floors, now you gotta have hard pipe, you gotta have pipe duct, you gotta have flame, explosion resistant exhaust fans. I see a lot of little faces like nobody's ever heard of this stuff. It is a catastrophe right now. Prior to after the pandemic, all HVAC costs doubled. I know that because I can show you an invoice before and I can show you an invoice after, and it's about to double again. Why? Because the refrigerant phase out, because of the shortage of equipment, you can't get equipment. The third thing is, there is a shortage of the refrigerants. So the new refrigerant that they were supposed to be using, you can't even get it. One of the A2L refrigerants is called R454B. I went to a supply house one time. So a can of R410A, for a little perspective, was probably $300. At the time this summer, they were selling cans of R454B, the replacement, for $2,000. 5 to 6 times the cost, and they were in such short supply, they were not actually selling it. So you might have a store that has thousands of cans of R410A, they might have 8 cans of 454B, and they're only selling it to people who are buying new equipment. So therefore, if you install an A2L system and you're trying to fill it up because something leaked out, because you can't find the leak, well guess what? That is going to cost you a lot of money. And this was my fear back in 2019, where I was telling all my students, you have to do something. You have to talk to your board, you have to talk to your management company, you have to tell somebody to make these. Now obviously, we didn't know the pandemic was gonna happen. So there's all these accelerators that happen that changes, what people's plans are. But right now, where we are sitting, here's the truth. Most of your buildings are probably getting fined right now, or gonna get fined at the end of this year, right? Here's the next shoe that's gonna drop that a lot of people don't know about. There's something called the Climate Mobilization Act that is on the state level. So everybody was worried about Local Law 97 on the local level. On the state level, it says if your boiler breaks by the year 2030, you can't replace it. In the year 2030, now if you can fix it, you can keep buying parts forever for that boiler. I've been in buildings where I used an HRT boiler from 1920, right? As long as you can get that boiler working, you can keep it. But if it breaks catastrophically, they use the term end of life. If that boiler reaches its end of life, you cannot put another boiler into the building. Why? Because all of this stuff is in the ground, and it's climate change. No matter how you feel about it, that was why they were doing it. Local Law 97, Climate Change Mobilization Act. There's something where they have 20 governors of 20 states in the United States, blue and red states, where they're committed to installing 20 million heat pumps in this country, right? So here's the problem. Remember all the stuff I talked about? You can't get equipment, you can't get refrigerant, there's massive labor shortage. So what does that have to do with why I'm here? I was trying to come up with a solution, which ended up being this. So the name that we use for this is indoor heat pump. What is a heat pump? Heat pump is an air conditioner that can do both heating and cooling, but that's not what Local Law 97 and the Climate Mobilization Act were about. It's not just putting in a heat pump, because there's been heat pumps for years. Inside of here, there's something called an inverter. And an inverter kind of ramps the compressor speed up and down, so that if you compare the electric heat that comes out of a heat pump compared to a resistive electric heater, it's like a quarter of the cost. That's really what it's about. This is an air conditioner or a refrigerator. You put your hand behind a refrigerator, you feel heat. All air conditioners, refrigerators, freezers, they're all heat pumps, right? But they don't reverse to put the heat inside. So that is what they want. They want a heat pump with an inverter. Typically we call them VRF, where they can ramp up and down so we can save energy. So if you ever hear the term electrification, that's really what they're talking about. A couple years ago, I found out about a VRF heat pump that was designed to go into a PTAC sleeve. You guys all know the through-the-wall sleeve. The problem is this: they made it 42 inches. You have 36-inch PTAC sleeves, you have 38-inch PTAC sleeves. They made it for the biggest one. They could not sell them. In 2021, I found out about them. One of my friends with Carrier told me, oh, there's this product. He gave me one. I went to the manufacturer's rep. They were like, how did you find out about this? I'm like, well, here we are. So I actually had to help them sell their units because they could not move the units. So they built like a hotel. They put in 100 of these units based on my recommendation. I went on with my life. Earlier this year, the manufacturer's rep came to me and they were like, well, we got all these units from 4 years ago. Do you want to buy them? We went to the hotel. I asked the people at the hotel in 4 years, did you ever have any issues? They said, none. I said, okay, this is great. The only problem is you made it for the big PTAC sleeve. How can we install this inside of buildings outside the PTAC sleeve? So essentially this case right here has both an indoor unit and an outdoor unit. This is a 1-ton VRF split system heat pump, but guess what? If I want to, I can add a second head. Like that cassette, a wall mount, a slim duct. I can put this head someplace else, and I can run this. Right now, it's actually running off 120. So this is a 220 unit, but we have a transformer that's running off 120. I'm pretty sure it's been running for at least 20 minutes. You guys haven't heard it explode yet, so that means it's doing its job. In my estimation, I think that this is a great solution for large buildings. Why? Because if we do this, my company, we install heat pumps. If I were to put that big 10, 20, whatever ton VRF up on your roof, I'm gonna have to drill through every floor. I'm gonna have to open every wall, I'm gonna have to open up every ceiling. It's going to be a construction nightmare. And we do it a lot in commercial spaces and schools and things like that, but if you do it in residential, the displacement would be immense. I know a building, one of my students, they did like some plumbing pipe, one of the risers, and it was a huge war with the board and stuff like that. Yeah, see, so like we know what it's like. So something like this is exchanging heat. If I have the temperature gun over here, come up, and you'll feel like the cold air is coming out here, it's shooting hot air out the back. So all we need for a unit this size that can heat or cool 2 rooms is a 2 square foot space going to the outside. Bring in some fresh air, exhaust some air, right? So that's kind of where we start. But the next thing is this, because the thing that frustrates me most is the teacher of HVAC for 21 years. Nobody knows anything about HVAC. Like I throw up my back, see how they see we built a design to market this product, and it's literally a milk carton with a heat pump on it saying, have you seen your heat pump? Because most people, even those who have heat pumps, could not tell you where their heat pump condenser is at. They can't tell you how it looks, they can't tell you how it works, they can't tell you when the last time it was checked. And as somebody who services this stuff, You have to be Indiana Jones to get to some of this equipment sometimes. And I mean in commercial buildings, it's impossible to get to it. So then when the equipment stops working, everybody's frustrated. The building owners, the building managers, the tenants, everybody's upset because they don't know what's going on. And for me as an instructor, I want people to have a relationship with their equipment. Whether they own it, whether they're renting it, whether it is a tenant in the building, I want people to understand, to be able to say, hey, something's wrong. And then, instead of me having to drive out there and pay congestion pricing and all this stuff, we can work together, or especially in the building, the staff of the building can understand what's going on. They can solve a lot of these situations without, because here's the next step. Service companies, a lot of companies are either going out of business or they're being bought out by private equity. A friend of mine, he's a plumber, upstate New York. The company he works for charges $800 per person per hour. It's in Rochester. How are they able to do that? Because they bought up all the plumbing companies. And then they can control the market and they can set the prices. And that is what is taking place right now in HVAC. How do I know? Donnelly. Donnelly was bought by, what is it, NG? Yeah. PJ Mechanical, Penguin. They were all bought out by these large overseas conglomerates worth billions of dollars because they are trying to set the market. My company, my HVAC school, my HVAC service company, we get an email every single week. Hey, you want a phone call? You want to talk about exit for charge set? Every single week. And a lot of my friends, I'm 50, a lot of my friends in this business are in their 60s and 70s and they're dying to get out. And what those companies are doing, they're buying their book of customers, which are you guys. And when enough of those companies own those books, they're going to say, oh yeah, when our maintenance contract is up, all those prices are going to double. So again, I can talk about this stuff for ages, as some of you know. So do we have any questions or? Oh, okay. All right, great. All right, so I got some. How much is it? A single unit like this is probably $10,000. Okay. And then with a second head, it'll probably be $12,000. So the reason for that, because what a lot of people do is compare it to a regular heat pump and go, you know, I can get a regular heat pump for that. However, if you cannot drill that hole through that wall and hang that unit on the outside, or as many young ladies who's a master electrician, technically speaking, every heat pump is supposed to have a master electrician because that disconnects on the outside. You have to factor in all those costs, and when you're doing big systems, previously you were talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, now you're talking about millions of dollars. So what we're trying to offer here, not only is the way that the unit works, but also the serviceability of the unit. It's right there. All the parts are very accessible. We have latches, you can open it up and see the machinery working inside of there. But then also, what people have to take into account is, if you have a system with hundreds, thousands of feet of refrigerant line, and there is a leak in that wall or that ceiling, you will never find it. And now what is the cost to start breaking out the walls? What is the cost? Like I said, all the new refrigerant is flammable refrigerant when you're talking about $2,000 for a 20-pound can. So I believe what we're selling is, we say it right there, low cost of installation. A unit like this, you can literally just drop it right there on the floor, duct it to a vent, duct it to a window, and then you're in business. We have the second head. I actually have it in the vehicle, but like I said, I broke my back, so didn't want to bring it up. But it can be installed within an hour. And then you have a two-zone system running off 220 amp breaker drawing less than 4 amps, servicing 2 rooms. I hate PTACs. I'd be completely honest. I despise PTACs. We were working with a low-income housing unit, and it took 3 people just to get this PTAC out of the wall. With this unit right here, it is heavy, but it's right there. I can spin this thing around and service it right there. What a lot of people don't know about PTACs, I'm sure some of you do. You know, what is it, local law 11. I was dealing with this low-income housing building where not only do they have to replace all the air conditioning systems, they have to repoint all the entire brick for the building And people think it's about the water that comes out of the back of the air conditioning system. It's not just that. You have one side of this PTAC that's hot and one side of this that is cold, and you're constantly getting this friction and this motion taking place in the box that's actually kind of twisting in your brickwork like that. And it creates these little tiny holes that when it rains, the rain gets in there, it freezes, and now it's constantly expanding. I despise PTACs. So this unit is a replacement for a PTAC. I like to think it's better. It's actually a replacement for a boiler. If you did an entire building with units like this, you would be able to decommission the boiler and get rid of your local law 97.
Right, so my building has two sections. One that uses steam heating from the boiler, and then this other one that acts sort of like a heat pump, similar to your equipment.
Yes, sir.
But this you said will fit and replace a heat pump unit in an apartment building.
So this is designed to go in front of a sleeve. If you have an existing sleeve, we can put it in front of the sleeve and then duct it out. We can, if you have a 42-inch sleeve, like if you break my arm, you want to buy it, I'm going to put it in the sleeve. I really don't want to put it in the sleeve. I would prefer that it be outside of the sleeve. Because then
So it's extending out.
it will extend out into the apartment.
Well, one of
So, as I said, this is an existing system from a worldwide manufacturer. What we have done is modify the system to make it easier to install, but it comes with the same 10-year warranty on compressor, I think it's 5-year parts and things like that. And plus, you know, I have a school. So when I do service, I'm not just doing service thinking about, you know, don't ever call me again. If there's a problem, I want to know what the problem is, because you could have a problem in every other installation. So, you know, we can offer, you know, in terms of labor, an extended warranty that you would not get on most other installations. But in terms of the exact parts, the parts themselves, this is an existing system that has been modified. It has underwriter's laboratory. It has all the, you know, same standards as any other heat pumps, and you would get no warranty.
Is that exactly what it looks like? Is that exactly what it looks like?
No, this is a version of it. So, funny story. Prior to coming here, I actually did a demonstration at Aiden's building, and it had this gigantic unit where it had this big floor mount, and it was so big you couldn't even get it through the door. So I went back to the office and I said, we need to make this smaller. We kept making it smaller, 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 and we said, well, why not just put the head attached to the unit itself? So that's what this is. These are two separate units. They just happen to be attached here. So you could have, my back, you could have the box down here with your outdoor unit, and then you could have cassettes, you could have wall mounts, you could have slim ducts with the registers coming through the ceiling. So any other type of heat pump is exactly the same. The only difference with this unit versus any other heat pump is that the outdoor air unit is indoors. No drilling holes. Really, you don't even need a permit for this. The only thing is this, would I want to run this on a 120 transformer all day and all night? Probably not. If you have 220, great. If you need to convert a 120 into a 220 and plug that into the wall, that would be the only work that needs to be done. That's another thing, like the permits. Like getting permits to do a lot of this work, because technically speaking, there's supposed to be an inspection that goes along with that. This mitigates all of that stuff. We literally bring this in, we drop this in front of a sleeve, or we duct it through a window, and I mean like a 2-inch slim duct going up out a window, takes care of all your work. Yes, sir?
This is $10,000 per heat pump, so like 2-bedroom apartment, you have 2
So if you had a 2-bedroom apartment, right? So this right here, the outdoor air unit is 12,000 BTUs. However, it can be oversized on the indoor units to 16,000 BTUs, right? So what we've typically done, you might have a living room area, depending on the size, with a 9,000, and then a bedroom with like a 6 or 7,000. So that is a possibility. Or if you have a large living room, you can have this with a 16,000 or 15,000 in the living room area, and you can have one for the bedroom that goes to the 2-bedroom. So you're essentially having, the math on this is basically each one of these 220 volts, 4 amps. If you have 2, you can have up to 4 zones on 8 amps, so 220. And the reason why that's important, right? when we look at these very, very big buildings, what people don't understand, those big VRFs had big compressors and they draw a lot of energy. So we have some systems where they have 100 amp breakers. And if that compressor goes out, good luck trying to get a replacement for that compressor anytime soon. Because what people have to understand, if you have 1,000 feet between your indoor units and your outdoor units, that compressor is constantly working, trying to pump that refrigerant through those systems. So the electrical costs, if anybody's interested, they take a flyer and reach out to me, I can send you cost estimations that we have done, right? Inside of most buildings, a lot of pre-war buildings will have either a steam system or a hot water system, right? Even if you have the PTAC, there's 3 types of PTAC. You can have a heat pump PTAC, but most of those don't have the inverter, so you're not getting the benefits that they want with local law 97. They want inverter heat pumps because it ramps the energy up and down. You have the PTACs that can have either hot water or steam coil above the unit, and then they have a little temperature sensor that goes in there. You put it in heat mode, it sends the hot water through the coil, and then the fan just blows inside the space. We've done the estimation, and we've proven, according to my estimation, that these are cheaper to install, cheaper to run, cheaper to operate than those are. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about the boiler explosion that took place a couple of months ago in Night Shift. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about the Legion Air Disease outbreak that took place in Harlem with the cooling towers. My biggest frustration is single point of failure systems. Whether that be a boiler, whether that be a chiller, whether that be a cooling tower, whatever it is. I don't like big systems that run large parts of buildings because if it fails, then you have nothing. At least something like this. And I didn't even really get into the controls with this, right? This can be hooked up to a BMS system. There's actually a digital control. Get my back. That screen right there, that screen can show you the operating pressures inside of this system right now without having to come along and hook up gauge manifold and losing refrigerant and compromising the system. This is what I mean in that I believe that this system can change the way that we operate buildings because whether it's the homeowner or it's the people in the building mechanics, the porters, whatever it is, anybody can come up there and say, oh, I see what the pressures are inside of the system. The refrigerant's good. Maybe it's something else. Could be the filters, could be the fans, could be anything. But the number one thing that happens in terms of service in this business is people come along, oh, you need some refrigerant. And then you add refrigerant, it's too much, it blows out the compressor, now you got bigger problems. And this is what I mean. I'm an educator. I've been teaching HVAC and building engineering for 21 years. I want everybody to learn this stuff. But I know that's not going to happen. How can we simplify this to put it into people's hands to recognize when something is wrong, when they need to call somebody else, and when they don't? Yes, sir?
What's the coldest temperature calculation?
The coldest temperature? 60 degrees. So in terms of
I
HVAC,
didn't say correct, on the heating mode.
in heating
What was
mode,
the outside coldest temperature?
no, it can work. So I'll give you some videos from earlier, because this year was terrible. This year we had like 0 degree temperatures earlier this year. And we were getting like consistently 89 degrees coming out of this. Now, if I put this in the heat mode right now, you probably get 120 degrees coming out. But when you get down to 0 degrees, you're still going to get heat coming out, which is not going to be 120 degrees. That's 410A. So remember I said I bought all the existing? So it was I can still, with this, technically speaking, I'm not installing this. I'm not drilling a hole, I'm not doing anything like that. So I can still use this. And it's very funny right now because there's discussion, the administration is suggesting to prolong a little bit of the phase out, at least for another year, because there's a lot of existing equipment. I deal with these suppliers, like these guys are freaking out because they have tons of 410A equipment, and it's like, what are we going to do with this stuff? With the A2L refrigerants, there are 2 main A2L refrigerants. You have the R32. So R32, you hear like R22, it's kind of like R32, which means it's a single refrigerant. R410A is like R454B, which means it's a blend. The problem with the blend, if you have a leak with a blend refrigerant, even if it's a little bit, the machine will never work properly again. With the R32, it's a little bit better. Daikin is a proponent of R32, so they have a large supply of that refrigerant. So the R454B, your Mitsubishi, they chose R454B. There's a shortage of the refrigerant, right? I found out a couple of months ago with Daikin, they got plenty of refrigerants. They don't have the indoor heads. Why don't they have the indoor heads? Because it's flammable refrigerant, it has to have a shut-off valve in case there's a leak, and they haven't made enough yet. There's all of these issues that nobody knows about, that when buildings make the decision, okay, now we want to do something about local law 97, those options aren't going to exist. And it's only going to keep getting worse. The cost of everything, the cost of insurance. I'm pretty sure some of your insurance, pretty sure pre-pandemic you guys had like a $2 million, coverage or a COI for your buildings. It's probably $10 million right now. I know buildings where it's $15 million. I have thousands of students who run buildings. They run schools, they run museums. If somebody says, Taurus, can you do this work? I'm going to say, yeah. So I do all type of work. And I know what's happening across all scopes of these industries. But like I said, when I started Taurus Tech, I started at 50 West Street and I started at Waterline Square. And I got to see that aspect of the business to say, oh wow, this is great. However, you have these big points, single points of failure where if something goes wrong, everybody's in trouble. And I think we need to get away from that. Yes, sir?
Can you talk a little bit about the training you offer?
Sure. So funny story. I threw my back out on the weekend and I woke up and I was feeling great today. And then literally we put this thing in the van to drive it over and the headlights did not work. So I had to throw this thing in the back of my CRV and it kind of messed it up a little bit, but we're gonna truck through it. So this is our app. So that app right there, in fact, let me see. If I can log in here. Is it password? Grab my computer. Oh, I'm gonna do it. Guys, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that feels crappy going to work sometimes, so don't make excuses. We do what we gotta do. There you go. All right, so this is interesting. People don't usually get to see this. This is actually my my database for my system here. So we have previews where people are able to create accounts and then preview the different courses. Do we have Wi-Fi here? Okay, I'll connect to my phone. Oh, good. All right, so this is our website. Oh, wait a minute. So that's Waterline Square when they were building it. Waterline Square again. This is 50 West Street. All right, so this is our web app here. So we have multiple versions of our app. We have Android, iOS, Windows, Mac, web. We even have VR. The primary thing that we train people for is the New York City refrigeration license. Oh, we have facial recognition. What? Hang on a second. Come on. Okay, great.
Welcome to the Tories Training app.
Okay, so I'll show you guys. Free preview. Oh, let me. I'm in the wrong account here. Let me see. Actually, I'll just go in here. Yeah. So I just signed up for a preview in one of these courses right here. And this is for the New York City refrigeration exam. When I took the refrigeration exam in 2004, it was a verbal practical. You would have to go into a machinery room and have some guys yell at you for a little while. Right now, it's a virtual practical. So this is a chiller. And all of these parts here are selectable, where I can get some information on the different parts of the chiller. I can take readings and things like that. But we also have AI. So that button there that says no more, I'm gonna hit that. And our AI is gonna pop up and it's going to give us some more information on that particular part of the machine. So one of the things I've learned in 21 years of teaching and stuff is I don't know everything. However, there are tools that are available that allow us to fill in the blanks with a lot of this information. At the same time, this is good and it's also bad. Why? Because not all this information is going to be perfect. There's going to be some dodgy information in there, right? And it's still incumbent upon people to know when a piece of information is good or when a piece of information is bad. But what's happening right now are the tech companies are trying to come after all the jobs. And I think that it's incumbent on anybody who's doing any type of job to increase their knowledge and increase their skills as much as possible so that they can make themselves irreplaceable. So with us, whether we are doing 3D or VR or AI or whatever it is, whatever tools we can use at our disposal to help people to learn more, to be better at their jobs, that's what I believe. So along with this, like I said, I'm logged into the wrong account, but this is like an idea of some of the stuff that we offer. Most of the lessons are like videos and quizzes and things like that, but we also have virtual reality with scans of buildings and things like that. And so the website is my name, taurustech.org. Anybody can go there, create an account, download the app, and do a free preview of any of the courses that we have there. If you're interested in taking some courses, whether it's the refrigeration license, fire life safety director, sprinkler standpipe, we offer all the certifications that the fire department has. Yes, sir?
Have buildings engaged you in training their staff?
So this is an interesting thing, right? I mentioned earlier the A2L refrigerant. So the fire department, for everybody who has a refrigeration license, some of you guys here, they came out with a new requirement that everybody take an A2L course in order to renew their license. So earlier this year, I was trying to do that course as a hands-on class because I wanted to show people the tools and the equipment and stuff like that. And we didn't have a lot of takers. So I switched it to an online on-demand class. Over the last, I'd say 3-4 months, New York Presbyterian, Memorial Sloan Kettering, NYU Langone, we got hundreds of students. And I started to notice something started to change in that organizations are realizing they have to start investing in employee training again. Because there was a period of time where a lot of companies, they didn't want to pay for employee training for a very good reason. And this guy's one of the reasons because all the people I trained at 50 West Street, Waterline Square, they're all running the building. They all left. And for a lot of employers, they're looking at it like, why am I spending money for somebody who got their foot out the door? And I'll never forget this. I had a meeting with Vincent Padone. He was the vice president of construction for GID when they was building Waterline Square. And I said, what would you prefer? Somebody who has no ambition and he wants to stay in your building forever? Or somebody who has ambition and they're going to bring that attitude to your facility every single day? And that was the only reason that he greenlit the training for the guys over at Waterline Square. For a while, as I said, because a lot of my students were telling me, like, they're getting somebody coming in for like a doorman job, they want $35 an hour and don't want to work weekends and all this stuff, and making these demands, I'm pretty sure some of you guys know. And I think right now, I'll be honest, I think this country is going into a recession, if not a depression, at the same time. I think the tech companies are committing to obliterating every job possible. Whether it's a concierge, like there'll be a robot concierge in the lobby. There'll be a robot, porter. They'll do whatever they can because it gives them the power. And all of the businesses have to pay them for those services instead of being able to hire people. And I'm encouraging people, listen, there's no shame in doing a porter job. I can show you video of me, fixing a trash compactor. I work in garbage every day. Technically speaking, HVAC is dirtier than the garbage sometimes. So we have to get young people. Nothing against college, but listen, by the time you graduate with a degree today, there's not going to be a job waiting for you most likely. I believe that buildings are the colleges of the future, and that there's so much that you can learn starting as a porter, starting at entry level, learning everything about that building, working your way up, and I believe it's incumbent on organizations, property management organizations, to spend the money to train their staff, not because it's about that one person. You want to create a culture of learning. I had one of my guys, he was running a building in Long Island City. Beautiful building called, I think, Skyrim. Beautiful building. He introduced me to his property manager. He said they wanted to do training. I gave them a quote, they passed on it. Within a month, they had a leak, a dry sprinkler system. The flapper valve gave out. All the water went into the basement and destroyed all the elevator, computer equipment. It cost them millions of dollars because that same property manager did not have a warranty on it. He got fired, my guy got fired, everybody got fired. I say this because the same way, like you look at a piece of equipment right there, I'll tell my guys, you need to notice everything in the facility. You walk in a room, you need to know what it smells like, what it looks like, what the sounds. This thing right here, this thing's been running at least for a half hour right now. I'm pretty sure if the noises start to change, you guys are going to notice, right? Everybody in the building is the tip of the spear, be it the porter, be it the cleaner. Everybody, because they can prevent these catastrophic events that we're witnessing. What happened in the Bronx with that boiler explosion was catastrophic. Not just because of the impact on that building, but I guarantee you the shoes are about to drop on boilers in every building. They've already released new requirements for cooling towers because of the Legionnaires outbreak. Everybody suffers because of this stuff, and I tell everybody, you don't want it to be your building on the news the next day. All right? All right, guys, appreciate the time.
Thank you, Charles.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, guys, I just want to speak, because I
took Taurus's class in 2019, and I was at the Waterline Square one. I wasn't at Waterline Square, I was the building next door. But I think not even 6 months got EPA certified, got my Q01 license. It was a big portion of why I am where I am today. It took me 6 months. Yeah.
How long does it take through the union?
My dad did it through the union, it took him 3 years. So, and I mean, I paid out of pocket for the class, but saved 2.5 years on it, probably learned a lot more. I was living in Brooklyn at the time, which, are you still down in Brooklyn?
We're in Flushing, Queens now.
Flushing, Queens now. At the time, Taurus was in Brooklyn. I used to go down to his workshop, and I'd take classes there for free. I got to work, learn how to solder, practice a lot of skills. Taurus calls, checks in, everything. Probably after I finished the class, Braze. Yeah. Braze. In fairness, after I finished the class, I took a break from the industry for a while.
Yes, you moved to the West Coast or something. I was like, what happened?
Taurus hadn't heard from me in 5 years. I called him last year right away. It was Asheen, how are you doing? Your number's still saved, even though he hadn't heard from me in 5 years. So he takes a lot of pride in his work and in his students, and I can definitely testify to his classes. I think it's fantastic. So
Some free test push.
Just in case they change the QO1, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, you never know.
You never know.
All right, so for any other information, it's taurustech.org, and you'll be able to get all the information you need there in regards to the classes and also in regards to his heat pump system. Taurus, thank you again.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to formally open the membership meeting right now. You don't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.